right now with the COVID mixed with the opioid, mixed with general depression that seems to be everywhere.
Right. So right now, COVID we're in a pandemic, and everybody is grieving. They're not grieving necessarily a death, but they're grieving the loss of normalcy. So when we are at that risk of fear because of a pandemic, the unknown, could we get sick? Could we lose a loved one? How will that impact us? Who will take care of us? How, if I'm laid off, how will I afford my house or to provide food for my children? So it is kind of a chaos right now. So people are concerned at many different levels for many different reasons. And then if you add the impact of a loss that's already been experienced, it can trigger unresolved grief, or it can bring back that grief because you're realizing I'm alone. If I get sick, who's going to take care of me? So at various levels, but it also is a concern for things such as addiction, overdose, suicide. When you bring in something so traumatic like a pandemic, it can increase those numbers significantly, and there is great talk that the numbers of suicide or overdose could grow. We have seen growth. Could it be? It won't really be known for several years the true impact of COVID on suicide rate or overdose rates, if indeed COVID is the reason. So it's going to take some time to measure that, but there are signs that it has increased, unfortunately.
So are you getting an increased number of calls?
Yes. Not only are we getting calls for new grief, we are getting calls for people that have been through our program 5 years out. And the extended isolation is really triggering some of that unresolved grief, or bringing some fear and anxiety that I'm alone. This is really uncomfortable and unsettling. It reminds me of when I lost my loved one. I need additional support. So they're calling and getting reconnected, or they are indeed new grievers that have lost someone due to the pandemic, whether it be a COVID reason for the death or just during this pandemic. So with the pandemic, with the loss of a loved one due to death at this time, it's created some unique challenges. The fact that many loved ones aren't able to go to the hospital with them. I've heard several stories where they literally had to drop them off at the ER door and wait. So it wasn't that individual could even call them. Sometimes the nurses or the doctors would be the point of contact. So that's terrifying. And then not being able to visit them or check in on them. You're lucky if you got a ground floor window and your loved one could come and wave hello from the outside, but it's rare. There's very limited visitation in the hospital. They broaden their restrictions a little bit, but it's still, if you have small children, they can't go in and visit. If should mom or dad get sick, they're not able to go into the hospital to visit. So the challenge then increased when these individuals possibly were identified that they had only a short period of time to live. The family member often was not able to be there at the time of loss. And then that just moves forward to the celebration of life, whether it be a funeral or some other celebration. Many of them were not able to be held or shared with family. And if they were, they took a very different approach and look. Often 10 people in the funeral home, or it was a virtual viewing, which is very foreign to many of us and creates some unresolved closure. And that can indeed manifest and create additional issues down the road if we are unable to celebrate our loved ones' lives or being there. So those are very unique challenges to COVID. So we have a specific group that works with those individuals that have a hospice background, a clinical background, and can help those individuals connect with one another, because they're not alone. They too have been impacted by loss during COVID or due to COVID. And then from there, after some time, we will put them with, if they choose to move forward with additional support, with their type of loss, so whether it be a spouse or a child or due to suicide. But right now we're really keeping that group together because it's unique. They have lots of different challenges that they're trying to deal with and overcome besides just that loss.
And how has the partnership with Plymouth Community United Way helped you?
Oh, you guys have been so amazing. So besides just grants over the last several years, if there's a need, Marie Morrow has been fabulous. She gave me her personal cell phone and just said, call if you have a specific need, because if there's money and it can impact lives and save lives, we want to be part of it. So you've allowed us to grow our capacity. One, a couple of years ago, we were able to move into bigger space and obtain this conference room. We are actually bursting at our britches now, where we can barely accommodate the numbers when we are in normal times. For like a family Friday, 40 people in this space, it's pretty tight. So accommodating more people on site, but also early grief. You've allowed us to expand the program. We can support individuals with loss on a one-to-one here in this space. And then next steps, grow our ongoing support groups. So right now we have 15 ongoing groups, and you've helped us add the COVID pandemic group, which is phenomenal. It was slow to start because people were dealing with the trauma of the pandemic, so they weren't ready to work on that grief yet. I do foresee that need to be significant in the next 6 to 12 months. It's going to grow. So you guys were able to financially support us to get that up and running. So our team had the proper trauma-informed training to speak to that type of loss and bring comfort and connection to those individuals. I'll share with you, or Bill, if you would grab one of those masks. I think they're down here. Yeah. And the most recent gift bestowed to New Hope from United Way has allowed us to really bridge the barrier of communication with masks. So we wrote a grant and requested funding for the plexiglass see-through mask, so communication between grievers is not misconstrued or misunderstood because you can't see. So these masks were actually created for hearing impaired, and are going to bring a huge amount of clarification and comfort because you'll be able to see the whole person and fully understand, not misinterpret emotion or language, because you can see what's going on. I think this is probably the most exciting thing.
I don't know.
Okay.
Not these, right?
Nope.
No, they're like in a maroon box, right?
Yep. I can find them after. I think it's that big box actually.
Oh,
Yep.